The Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria's 40th anniversary celebration became more than just a milestone event. It became a stage for one of the most significant conversations within the Christian community in recent times.
Mercy. We are showing them love, but they didn't see. I don't know whether I'll be the next, but for me, I've already told my family, my members, if they kidnap me, nobody should contribute one kobo.
The celebration brought together the most influential voices in Nigerian Christianity, men and women who have shaped faith, revival, and doctrine across the nation. Among these leaders was Bishop Wale Oke, the current president of the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria and a long-respected national Christian figure. Bishop Wale Oke, known for his calm yet firm leadership, delivered a message that stirred deep reflection and debate. His statement appeared to challenge one of the most passionately defended positions by Bishop David Oyedepo, the idea that Christians in Nigeria are the primary victims of a silent, ongoing genocide. For years, Bishop Oyedepo has used his platform to condemn what he describes as the systematic persecution of Christians, especially in northern Nigeria. But during this historic gathering, Bishop Wale Oke chose a different tone. He acknowledged that genocide exists but rejected the idea that it is solely directed at Christians. This position immediately raised a vital question. Was Bishop Wale Oke simply calling for balance and unity in a deeply divided nation, or was he unintentionally downplaying the genuine suffering of thousands of Christians who have been victims of violence and displacement? The question lingered in the minds of attendees and quickly spread beyond the walls of the Redemption Camp, where the PFN anniversary was held. This moment marked a turning point, one that challenged believers to think deeply about the balance between truth, love, and leadership in times of crisis. To understand the weight of Bishop Wale Oke's statement, it's important to look back at the ongoing situation in Nigeria. Over the years, the nation has been plagued by persistent insecurity, particularly in states like Plateau, Benue, Kaduna, and Zamfara. Countless lives have been lost to attacks carried out by unknown gunmen, bandits, and extremist groups. Many of these attacks have targeted Christian-dominated communities, leading to widespread fear, displacement, and grief. For a long time, Bishop David Oyedepo has stood as one of the loudest voices calling attention to this crisis. His messages from the pulpit and national broadcasts have often described the killings as an orchestrated campaign against Christianity in Nigeria. He has accused both political and religious systems of turning a blind eye to what he calls a deliberate attempt to wipe out believers. In many ways, his bold stance has made him a symbol of spiritual defiance, a prophetic voice crying out against injustice. Because of Oyedepo's influence, many Nigerian Christians began to see the violence not just as a political or social issue, but as a spiritual and religious one. Churches have prayed, fasted, and organized intercessory programs for believers under persecution. For some, the narrative of a targeted Christian genocide has become both a rallying cry and a source of unity among Christians who feel under siege. However, Bishop Wale Oke's remarks during the PFN anniversary introduced a new dimension to the discussion. Rather than viewing the crisis purely from a religious standpoint, he framed it as a national tragedy affecting all Nigerians, both Christians and Muslims alike. His words invited the nation to consider the broader picture, suggesting that while persecution is real, division in response to it might only deepen the wounds of the nation. This shift in tone marked a moment of tension, not of hostility, but of differing perspectives within the body of Christ. The PFN President's position. In his speech, Bishop Wale Oke carefully laid out the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria's official position on the issue. He began by acknowledging that genocide indeed exists, that countless lives have been taken unjustly across the country. But then he made a critical clarification: our position is that genocide exists, but it is not just about Christians. With those words, he reframed the national conversation. Instead of focusing on one religious group, he emphasized the need to see every victim, Christian or Muslim, northern or southern, rich or poor, as a life precious in the eyes of God. To Bishop Wale Oke, the sanctity of human life transcends religious boundaries. Every murder, every act of violence, is a tragedy that touches the heart of God. He went further to warn that emphasizing only the suffering of Christians could unintentionally create a narrative of division, one that might encourage revenge, resentment, or the perception that Christian leaders care only for their own. His approach was not to deny persecution, but to elevate compassion as the guiding principle of leadership. For him, a godly leader must advocate for justice for all, not just for one group. Bishop Wale Oke's message also included a sharp call to government officials. He reminded them that governance is not about politics or power, but about the protection of lives and the welfare of citizens. He said that the PFN, under his leadership, would continue to speak truth to power, to challenge those in authority to fulfill their God-given duty of preserving human life and dignity. He warned that when leaders fail in this responsibility, they create room for lawlessness, hatred, and the breakdown of national unity. He appealed to both the Christian and Muslim communities to reject violence and instead work toward peace and coexistence. Beyond his words, what stood out was his tone, calm, deliberate, and fatherly. It reflected a man aware of the delicate balance between truth and peace. He didn't dismiss the pain of believers, he only insisted that the solution must be rooted in love and justice, not resentment or fear. By calling for a collective stand against all forms of killing, Bishop Wale Oke reminded the nation that the Church's voice is most powerful when it speaks not only for itself, but for all humanity. He envisioned a Nigeria where both Christians and Muslims could coexist peacefully, where leadership is measured not by rhetoric but by compassion, and where national healing can begin, not through division, but through understanding. In essence, his message was a call to rise above emotion and embrace wisdom. To fight not against one another, but against the real enemies, corruption, lawlessness, and moral decay. For Bishop Wale Oke, the greatest victory for the Church is not in being proven right, but in being the light that guides the nation toward righteousness and peace. Contrast with Bishop Oyedepo's stance. For decades, Bishop David Oyedepo has been one of the strongest and most vocal defenders of the Christian faith in Nigeria. His advocacy has often been bold, direct, and at times, confrontational. He has consistently warned that Christians in northern Nigeria have been systematically targeted, displaced, and massacred in what he calls a coordinated campaign against the Church. In his view, the violence against believers is not random, it is a deliberate attempt to silence the voice of Christianity and weaken the influence of the Church in the nation. From the pulpit of Faith Tabernacle in Canaanland, Bishop Oyedepo has raised his voice repeatedly, calling on both government and international bodies to recognize the plight of Christians and take action. He has described the killings as an assault on the faith and has accused the authorities of silence or complicity. To many believers, Oyedepo's words carry prophetic weight. His courage to speak when others remain silent has made him a symbol of truth-telling in a nation where fear often silences conviction. In contrast, Bishop Wale Oke's message at the PFN anniversary leaned toward inclusiveness and national healing. While Oyedepo speaks like a prophet warning of judgment, Oke speaks like a reconciler calling for peace. Where Oyedepo frames the violence as a religious persecution, Oke frames it as a national tragedy that affects all Nigerians, regardless of faith. To him, unity is the higher calling, and compassion for all humanity must remain at the heart of Christian witness. Both men share a common burden, the desire to see an end to the senseless killings. Both stand for justice and truth. But their approaches reflect two distinct streams within Nigerian Christianity. One is the prophetic confrontation that shakes systems and challenges authority directly. The other is diplomatic engagement that seeks to heal divisions and build bridges. Oyedepo's voice calls for accountability, Oke's voice calls for reconciliation. This contrast, rather than dividing the Church, reveals the beauty of diversity in leadership. The body of Christ needs both fire and wisdom, both the prophet who declares judgment and the priest who intercedes for mercy. Nigeria's spiritual landscape is large enough to hold both voices, each fulfilling a unique role in shaping the conscience of the nation. Public and Christian reactions. Bishop Wale Oke's statement did not go unnoticed. Almost immediately after his remarks, conversations erupted within the Christian community and across social media platforms. The reactions were mixed, revealing the deep emotions that surround the topic of persecution and national unity. On one hand, many believers and interfaith advocates praised Bishop Oke for his courage and maturity. They saw his message as a refreshing call for balance and peace in a time when division threatens to tear the nation apart. To them, Oke's statement was not a denial of Christian suffering but a wise reminder that hate knows no religion. His call to value every human life resonated with Christians who believe that love and forgiveness remain the greatest weapons against evil. Some argued that his message reflected true Christian maturity, the kind that refuses to repay evil with evil. They saw it as a strategic move to foster unity between Christians and Muslims and prevent the nation from slipping into deeper chaos. To these people, Oke's approach represents the leadership Nigeria desperately needs, leadership that builds bridges rather than walls. However, others did not see it that way. A significant number of Christians expressed disappointment, arguing that his comments seemed to water down the painful reality of persecution. They felt his words might give politicians and security agencies an excuse to continue ignoring the systematic attacks against believers. Some even accused him of compromising truth for diplomacy, suggesting that the church's role is to confront evil, not to neutralize it in the name of balance. Social media became the battleground for these opposing opinions. Hashtags about the PFN anniversary trended for days, with heated discussions on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Videos of Bishop Oke's speech circulated widely, alongside clips of Bishop Oyedepo's older messages condemning Christian killings. The contrast between both leaders became a topic of intense public debate. Many Nigerians, especially those from affected regions like Plateau and Benue, found it difficult to accept any message that appeared to soften the focus on Christian suffering. For them, the bloodshed was not theoretical, it was personal. Families displaced, churches burnt, and loved ones lost. To such people, the pain runs too deep to be balanced with diplomacy. Yet, amid the controversy, one truth remained clear. Bishop Wale Oke's intention was not to deny the pain, but to call for an end to all pain. His message sought to unite a nation fragmented by hatred. Still, as Nigerians continue to debate, one question hangs in the air. Is neutrality in times of evil a mark of wisdom or a sign of weakness? PFN's role in national unity and politics. Beyond the emotional debates, Bishop Wale Oke's address also revealed the broader vision of the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, a vision that extends beyond prayers and spiritual declarations. He reminded the audience that the PFN's responsibility is not only to intercede for the nation, but also to influence its direction through active engagement in governance and civic responsibility. He emphasized that faith must not end at the altar. It must translate into nation building. Under his leadership, the PFN has continued to expand its reach through practical initiatives designed to empower believers to participate in government and leadership. One of the key expressions of this vision is the Department of Politics and Governance, currently headed by Reverend Femi Emmanuel, a former Deputy Speaker of a House of Assembly turned pastor. This department serves a vital role to educate, train, and mobilize Pentecostal believers to understand the principles of good governance and responsible leadership. Its purpose is to ensure that Christians no longer stand on the sidelines, complaining about corruption and injustice, but take bold steps into the systems that shape the nation's future. In his own words, the PFN's mission is not to compete with political parties but to raise godly citizens who can bring light into dark systems. By blending spiritual insight with civic responsibility, the fellowship aims to shape national policies that reflect justice, fairness, and equity. This approach shows that the PFN is not content with being a voice of moral guidance alone. It wants to become an agent of tangible change, a force that influences governance, strengthens democracy, and promotes the welfare of all Nigerians, regardless of faith or ethnicity. Through this, Bishop Wale Oke and his team are setting a new tone for Pentecostal leadership, one that combines prayer with policy, faith with action, and spirituality with social responsibility. It is a reminder that the destiny of a nation is not changed only on the altar but also in the boardrooms, parliaments, and communities where decisions are made. As the PFN continues to take this bold path, its legacy at 40 becomes not just a celebration of the past, but a redefinition of what it means to be the light of the nation in a time of moral and political darkness. Spiritual and national interpretation. At the heart of Bishop Wale Oke's message lies a spiritual call that goes beyond politics, religion, or denomination. It is a call for compassion across all faith lines, a reminder that every human life, whether Christian or Muslim, carries the breath of God and deserves dignity and protection. His statement is not just a political clarification, it is a spiritual appeal to the conscience of a nation. In the words of Christ, believers are called to love their neighbors, even when it is inconvenient or painful. Bishop Oke's insistence that no one, not even those of other faiths, should lose their life unjustly echoes this principle. It reaffirms the teaching that love is not selective, and mercy is not tribal. True Christianity does not celebrate the suffering of others, it seeks redemption and peace for all. From a spiritual perspective, his message can be seen as prophetic wisdom meant to calm a nation already strained by religious tension. Nigeria's wounds run deep, years of division, distrust, and bloodshed have shaped its history. By urging believers to see beyond religious boundaries, Bishop Oke offers a possible path to healing. Unity across faith lines, he suggests, might be the missing key to achieving lasting peace. However, his words also carry a challenge. While calling for compassion, he does not dismiss the need for truth. Love and truth must coexist. Speaking truth to power is a biblical command, and silence in the face of injustice can never bring righteousness. Oke's perspective calls for balance, courage to condemn evil, but humility to forgive, boldness to defend the weak, but wisdom to avoid hate. Ultimately, his message invites both the church and the nation to mature spiritually, to rise above the urge for revenge and embrace the higher law of love. Because in God's eyes, peace without justice is incomplete, and justice without love is destructive. Nigeria, he seems to say, must find the place where both meet. As the PFN at 40 celebration fades from the headlines, Bishop Wale Oke's statement continues to echo across Nigeria's Christian and national landscape. His words have stirred both admiration and debate, but one thing remains clear: they have forced a deeper reflection on what true leadership means in times of crisis. At the center of this conversation stand two respected voices: Bishop David Oyedepo, known for his uncompromising defense of Christian faith and freedom, and Bishop Wale Oke, whose leadership emphasizes peace, inclusion, and dialogue. Oyedepo's passion cries out for justice and protection of the saints, while Oke's wisdom pleads for unity and healing for the entire nation. Both perspectives are necessary. One reminds us that silence in the face of persecution is betrayal. The other reminds us that hatred, no matter how justified, will never heal a nation. In truth, Nigeria needs both, the fire of conviction and the spirit of reconciliation. Because when these two forces work together, transformation becomes possible. This moment also calls for deep self-examination within the church. Should Christian leaders focus first on protecting their flock, or should they rise above denominational lines to promote peace for every Nigerian? It's a question that demands reflection, prayer, and humility. There is no simple answer, but the conversation itself is vital. The hope, however, is clear, that the church will remain the light in dark times, guiding both believers and the nation toward a future defined not by fear or division, but by faith, love, and unity. As we close, one truth stands out: true revival is not only about miracles or power, but about reconciliation and truth walking hand in hand. The Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria at 40 is more than an anniversary. It is a mirror showing where we are and where we must go. Let this story remind every listener that leadership is not about taking sides but about taking responsibility. May love guide our convictions, and may truth strengthen our compassion. If you've been blessed or provoked to think by this discussion, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected for more updates, stories, and reflections shaping the body of Christ in Nigeria and beyond.